Welcome to the Breath of Fresh Air Dental Podcast. Whether you're a seasoned practice owner, a new dentist, or an office manager looking to enhance your skills, this podcast is for you. Our friendly and knowledgeable hosts are here to answer your burning questions, address common pain points, and provide practical solutions to help you overcome any obstacles you may face. Our hosts, Amanda Demora and Sarah Hamlin, bring to the table lengthy careers in both clinical dentistry and practice administration. They now preside as the CEO and COO of Essential Dental Services.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Breath of Fresh Air podcast. I'm Amanda Demora.
And I'm Sarah Hamlin.
And today is a very special episode because not only is it our first guest episode, we're what I like to call bringing the fire with our first guest, who is the one and only Teresa Duncan. Teresa, I'm going to give a brief bio of Teresa, but I'll be honest, this does not do her much justice. With over 20 years of healthcare experience, Teresa addresses topics such as insurance coding, office manager training, and patient conversations. Her memberships include the National Speakers Association and the National Association of Dental Plans. She's been named one of the top 25 women in dentistry and is the author of Moving Your Patients to Yes, Easy Insurance Conversations, as well as a contributing author to the ADA's annual CDT Companion Guide. Her podcasts, Nobody Told Me That and Chew on This, provide regular coding and management updates. Teresa received her master's degree in healthcare management. So without further ado, welcome to the podcast, Teresa. We're so excited to have you.
I'm excited to be here. You girls are awesome. You're rocking it out there with this podcast. I enjoy it. And it's nice to be on here, even though that really does need to be trimmed, right? That whole bio. That just went on and on and on. Sarah, were you just like, oh my God?
No, I was thinking about how much you must love hearing all about yourself and your accolades every time you go anywhere or do anything.
No, because when you read all the things I'm a member of, that means that I write like membership checks, and I don't like that. Like that's what that makes me think of.
Yep.
She's seeing dollar signs as her bio is being read.
A true revenue cycle. That's what.
Yes.
I hate ever introducing myself. I do not like to do that. And then, of course, when people are reading your bio, you're just sitting there like hiding behind a piece of paper. That's what I want to do.
That's how it goes. But I, it's been a long time. I mean, I know it said 20 years, but it's probably closer to 30 years. I just need to own it. Like I used to hate saying that, but I just need to own it. It's been like 30 years. So I've seen a lot of changes. So I guess it should be sort of long, because if it wasn't, then that would mean something totally different after being in the biz for 30 years. So I guess I should be happy.
Yeah, exactly. So we're calling today's episode The Future of Dental Billing. Teresa Duncan looks into her crystal ball, which I love. As dental billers, we should always be looking towards the future and anticipating the next steps. And this is just a hot topic of what changes are coming, and there's no better person to help us navigate those than Teresa. So,
all right. I had this crystal ball that I could charge for. The crystal ball gets kind of foggy after a while, or at every little bit, because there's so many changes coming down the pike. I mean, I depend on people like you and some of the other dental billers to keep me updated on a lot of what they're seeing on the ground. But from what I see coming down the pike medically and public health wise, like I just think there's going to be a lot of changes in the next 5 years.
Yeah.
And I'm looking forward to passing the baton on to people to keep that going. But yeah, I can kind of give you an idea of what's going on. So what do you guys think is the biggest pain point coming up? And let's see if you and I have the same idea in mind. I kind of threw this on you guys, right?
Yeah. So wait a second. We are supposed to be asking the questions, but no, that actually that brings us right to the first one, which was talking about the 2024 claim form and what you kind of foresee maybe with future claim forms. Because you and I were actually just talking about this, Teresa, but I'd love to see more info boxes on there than just kind of like last SRP date, right? So
Yeah, I mean, theoretically, that would be fantastic because then you wouldn't have to fill in so much with the narratives or not narratives, but the clinical notes. But the clinical notes are a whole different topic. Let's put a pin in that because that's a huge change that we've got to talk about, this crystal ball piece. There's clinical notes are just a big part of that. But as far as the claim form goes, if we were to submit everything by paper, then yeah, the idea of having more boxes would make a lot more sense because we could then, the carriers could then scan the information like a PDF scanning the text and all of that. But the reality is most of us submit our claims electronically. And that's what all of us want to do. We want to submit our claims electronically because it speeds up the revenue cycle, submit fast, get paid fast. That's how it's supposed to work. So the issue becomes when you start adding on boxes to the claim form, if the corresponding data fields, what we call EDI, electronic data interchange, if those fields do not correspond to the new boxes, then the carriers and the clearinghouses are like, well, what do we do with this information? So then they get information just kind of thrown in this electronic format. And right now they're trying to figure out, well, what do I do with this? Do I even pass it on? And if I do pass it on, where do I put it? Box 35 is the obvious place to put it. But what if you already put something in box 35? Is it then appended to the end of that, or does it wipe out what was in box 35? And, I can't say what each carrier is doing because I haven't tracked it, but they're doing one or the other, or the clearinghouses are doing one or the other. And so anecdotally, I do feel like there's been a lot more rejections this year, just from what I'm hearing in classes and what I'm seeing online. I feel like there's been more rejections this year. And I can't figure out a way to say, well, was it an SRP claim? Because then or the 4910 claim, because then that box would have been filled out, the SRP box. I can't ask, was it a locum tenens? There's just no way for me to survey that. So I can offer nothing but anecdotes in this. That's why I lean on you guys. You guys tell me, are you seeing an uptick in rejected claims?
Not that I've heard from our account managers, but I think this whole thing, the whole process makes me so frustrated, and it makes me frustrated from the clinical standpoint or the in-office standpoint, because it's like we have these office managers and these doctors out there who are trying to do the right thing. They're trying to follow the rules that are put out there to use the new claim form. They're trying to be ahead of the game. And then what does that get them? Just more problems down the pipe. Like, it's just such a bummer that it's not a little bit more streamlined so that everybody can implement it all at once and actually have it go well. But I mean, I guess that's just kind of how these things go.
Well, unfortunately, there's got to be some catch up. I mean, I'm not going to say that this was thrown on the carriers, but they didn't have a ton of heads up. And so they're all on the back end trying to scramble and get the corresponding fields to match up. But another step that everyone has to take, the ADA and the carriers, is that there's a system for this, and there's an EDI standard. I don't want to get too in the fields, but you actually have to appeal to a higher power, I want to call it a higher organization than the ADA and the carriers, to make those fields standard on the claim form so that it does flow through the EDI, and that we're just not there yet. And so, people ask me all the time, should I just switch over to 24? And if you want to, you can. Just know that, just keep an eye out for this. But I don't know if I would dive headfirst into it if I wasn't being pushed to it just yet. I don't know. Did you guys, whenever you were in practice, did you guys wait on any updates from any of your software just to see if there were any bugs? I kind of feel like
absolutely,
yeah, right. I feel like we're in the bug stage right now with it, and maybe in 2 months my answer will be totally different.
Yeah.
I talk a lot about how I love EagleSoft, but it's funny because with EagleSoft, I kind of just always relied on Andre Sheridan. He's like, do not download the newest version yet. And that is what I followed. So,
yeah.
And speaking of EagleSoft, I mean, they won't even be ready for the 2024 claim form until they're hoping the summer. So, which is kind of a bummer because we actually have a client who's going on maternity leave. She's a dentist and is having some locum tenens dentists come in. And it would have been a perfect time to use that claim form. But alas,
no,
we'll be using some alternatives.
You could always try it and see if the information that is being sent is going to convey over. I mean, maybe she's working with a clearinghouse that has figured it out by that time. So you could always try it, and then if it doesn't work, then switch it back. I mean, there's nothing saying you can't go back to the 2019 claim form. And I know ADA hates me saying this, but I mean, I got to do what's right for everybody else out there. And you asked in the setup, what about the, how often are we going to have these? So
Yeah.
it what was it? It was 2008, then it was 2012, and then it was 2019.
Yep.
And then 2024. So it's kind of, I don't know. I don't like it. It's shortening.
Yes, it is getting shorter.
It's getting shorter. And the CDT code book, I don't know if you guys are so young, you probably don't remember, but the CDT code book got updated whenever. And then it was every 3 years. And then, well, maybe we'll do 2 years. And now it's yearly. So it used to not be yearly. It used to be like, 2000 or 1995, whatever. It was old, right? It was old. But now it's every year. And I feel like the claim form, if they get a direct line to being able to feed those fields into the upper level association, we might see changes every year if they get a good system down. But if they don't, I think it's going to be a lot of trouble. So
that's what I was going to ask, Teresa, is if you kind of know like the process or are privy to, I'm sure you are, for updating the claim form, like what all goes into it, who gets to like give input for what goes on the claim form or when those changes are made and what process has to go through for them to be approved.
Well, this is where I really love that we have people in the offices that are very, I guess, no, what's the word? It's not forthcoming. Oh, they're proactive. That's the word. They're really proactive. So if you're an ADA member, and even if you're not an ADA member office, you can call their coding hotline and give them these ideas. So, if there's really a lot of pain points, they compile that and then they take that to the different committees that are out there. So there is a committee out there that is responsible for the claim form. It's called the Dental Content Committee. And I don't say this to a lot of people, and I guess it's out, but I was named as a member of that committee earlier this year. So I get to see like how it's going to go and what they're looking for. It seems to me that prior to me being there, looking at past minutes, they really did rely heavily on the feedback that they got through the coding hotline and also through their member dentist. So they're not just sitting around. It doesn't seem like they're just sitting around going, how do we, blow this up? It's really in response to, this has been a big issue. And locum tenens has been a huge issue for the ADA. They put on a webinar last year about it because the amount of questions that they're getting have just been just over the top. I think the next thing they're going to address, which my committee would have nothing to do with, is how to interpret non-covered services laws. I think they really need to wrap their arms around that because this is a huge area of, I don't want to call it unethical billing, but misinformed billing is a really good word for that. Yeah. So hopefully that's, but it is, any of the billers that are on here, if you see that you're having these issues, encourage your clients to talk to the ADA and to file reports, call the hotline, because they have to log everything. And then at the end of the year, they really take a look at, what was the biggest pain point. And if one emerges, then they pay attention to that and throw together, a webinar or something like that. So the ADA isn't as unresponsive as a lot of people think they are.
Yeah.
they do pay.
Well, I'm very relieved to hear that. I think what I keep noticing is like, as I'm getting older in dentistry for longer and in all this situation for longer, is that dental office, especially front desk staff, like training is so on the job. And it can become very insular because of that. So you're trained by Susie, who is trained by Janice, who is trained by Lucy, and you only know what the people in your office know. So if no fresh blood, nothing comes in from an outside office that's seen how other offices are doing it, you don't realize that there's even these resources like the ADA or a place that you can complain or somewhere that you can reach out to for advice on things that are plaguing you in the office. It's crazy how small and for as many dentist offices as they are, and for as much as we're going to be around for the foreseeable future, it's crazy how we don't really connect with each other or don't connect with those resources outside of our own office sometimes.
Yeah, it's very much blind leading the way. And that's how I was taught. I remember the girl who, it's funny because when I left my practice, the girl who took my place was my right hand forever, and she's now running it. Her name is Jean, but the girl who trained me going in was Jean. And the first Jean was just a dinosaur. I mean, she was a dinosaur the day I met her. And I would say, how do you do this? And she would just, she would show me. And then I'd say, oh, well, I'd wait a day or two. And I would say, why don't we, maybe we can do this. And how about if I do this? And no, that's how we do it. And I was like, wow. And, now I realize how detrimental that is. But I mean, I guess if I hadn't been a little bit pushy, I would have probably been like, oh, that is how you do
Yep.
it. That's amazing. Like, and not question it. So I would love to see more curiosity though from the dental offices, because I think sometimes they do just accept it at face value, or they go on a Facebook group and they see something that just looks really easy and they take it. And I think if they just spent some time Googling, I mean, just legit Googling, they could find some of this information. But it's definitely something that bothers. I know I complained to Amanda about this a lot. Like, why do they say that? I don't understand.
Yep.
Why do they say these things?
Well, and the hard part too that I think is like Facebook or these social media groups is kind of it's the easiest and most accessible outlet for these people in office, right? They can connect with people the easiest through social media, but then they hear one piece of information or read one piece of information from another person in the group, and then they're a self-proclaimed expert in that all of a sudden, and then they disseminate the same bad information, and it just kind of is snowball from there for sure.
For sure. It's really funny too, because, a lot of us, we know each other, right? The billers and the people who are kind of in this space, we know each other. And I'll give a shout out to Lindsay Romeo. She's in the Dental Academy, Insurance Academy group, and she knows her stuff. And I see her sometimes trying to answer and give good advice, and people will argue with her. And I'm like, y'all don't know, like, she knows her stuff. Like, stop arguing with her. And then I have people that'll like send me messages like, that why don't you correct them? It's not my job to correct everyone. Like, I would be on Facebook all day, and I don't really feel like doing that. I mean, I think it is very much a buyer beware. I want to help, and I'll reach out when I feel it's appropriate. But I mean, the three of us could be on there all day just giving advice and arguing with people. We could be, and life's too short.
I feel like I often do answer. I have it all typed out, and then I'm like, you know what? I'm just not gonna.
I know.
Just because it's not worth it. And I think oftentimes when people are taking bad advice, kind of like Sarah said, it's really what they're wanting to hear. Like, they're wanting to hear that they can submit a crown on prep date or whatever it is, even though if that's against their contract with the insurance company. So it's we had Facebook on our topic for later in the show, but
kind of along these lines, Amanda and I have been talking about how it's hard to know, it's hard for these people in office to know who is a reputable source, like who should they be looking to for advice or guidance on these kinds of things. So do you have recommendations, Teresa, for some pretty like hard and fast, yes, this is a good source for you to reach out to or look into if you have questions about, dental billing?
My whole philosophy around management, and so bear with me why I kind of go there to come back to here. My whole philosophy around management is that my job is to protect the practice. Like, that was my goal as a manager, is to make sure we don't get sued, we don't get fined, we don't get shut down. That was how I operated, my offices. So when I look at ethical billing and when I look at proper billing, I have to go to the sources that would be used against me in a court of law. And that's really my truth. So I understand so-and-so may have a book. Sometimes the book is wrong. I know even my book needs to be updated. There's one or two things in there when I'm doing a book signing, I'll say, that
cross that out.
Yeah. But, again, it's buyer beware. But at the same time, when you go into a court, they're not going to pull out Joe Schmo's book. They're going to pull out the ADA's coding companion guide. They're going to pull out the coding book. They're going to pull that out. They're going to pull out the contract between you and the carrier. They're going to pull out the provider processing manuals. And so for me, that's where I'm looking for my truth. I'm not looking for what I read on a Reddit forum, 2 years ago that I screenshot and kept just in case they would come to audit, which is legit something somebody sent to me. So I will not survive in a court of law. And I would never want my doctor to walk into a court with that kind of information. So if I'm able to defend the billing that I'm doing, if I'm able to point to the contract and say, by our contract, this says this, then I'm going to sleep at night knowing my doctor is not going to get, railroaded. But that being said, the three of us did not wake up one day and realize that we knew how to read dental contracts. It took a lot of dental contracting. We had to take a look at a couple. We had to see what they meant. I mean, I took classes on medical contract interpretation. My graduate degree is in healthcare policy and management. So I started out reading medical contract and hospital policies, and those are complex. I mean, honestly, dental contracts are pretty easy withstanding, but I also took a lot of classes, malpractice attorney classes. So I would say to any of you billers out there, because you are responsible. I mean, that's why if you're doing any independent billing, like you two ladies, you need to have business insurance. You have to have liability insurance, errors and omissions, because if you advise them to do something, they go to court. You are in deep, deep hot water.
Mm-hmm.
And so you should know what's correct, what's ethical, and all of that. So take malpractice courses. TDIC is a big insurance company. So there's tons of other insurance companies. Look what the big dental malpractice carrier is in your state and see if they have some online classes and take them. And there's all sorts of classes that Medicare, CMS.gov gives on billing. Take those. If you're doing any medical billing, for crying out loud, don't think that you can just wing it. They will come after you, and it's what they call treble damages, which is triple damages. And I don't know about you, but I don't have a lot of money laying around that I can just pay fines from,
Right.
I don't want to.
Right.
So I guess long answer is, what can you use to defend yourself is, to me, what the truth is.
Yeah. And I think that most offices that I have worked in anyway, are like, oh, we're so small that nobody would ever come after us for anything. So they don't realize like the ramifications of the things that they're doing or what they could get in trouble for, I don't think.
No, they don't. And, when they assess fines, I've heard that exactly, but one of the largest fines that United Concordia handed out was like, I think $200,000 or $300,000, and it was nothing but x-rays. And the way they did it was they went in, they took a look to see, of this time period, how many x-rays were incorrectly billed, did not have supporting diagnosis in there or a prescription, because you need to actually the x-ray is prescribed. That's something that a lot of people don't realize. The x-ray there has to be a reason the x-ray was taken. And then the second part of that is there has to be a finding from the x-ray. The doctor has to actually prove they looked at the x-ray and they deemed it okay, or there's a problem. So they took this period of time, how many x-rays were bad, and then they extrapolated it for a long time period, and that's how they came up with their number. So, and if it has anything to do with malpractice, your malpractice carrier has a formula where if they can, help you with this, if they think you have a case, but if you don't have documentation, guess what? You're in trouble. So I don't mess around with this stuff, man.
Yeah.
That's a lot of money.
Mm-hmm. And I just don't like to be in trouble. I'm kind of a rule follower a little bit by nature. So I'm just like, no,
Yes.
If I cannot be, Amanda hates that about me, but I'm just like,
A little bit too much. No, I'm kidding.
Hey,
we balance each other out
exactly.
very nicely.
It takes all kinds to make the world go round, Amanda.
Of two friends, there's always one that's doing the bailing out and one that is getting bailed out. So I think I can see
how that's
what's
going.
on here.
Yeah.
Oh, man. All right. So next, speaking of Facebook, one thing I've been seeing on Facebook a ton is a post that's something to the tune of, we're going to have to start using diagnosis codes this year. And where do I start? So can you speak to that a little bit, Teresa? And where are they hearing that from? Obviously a lot of that applies to some state Medicaid plans and having to use it for that. But yeah, talk to us a little bit about the future of that.
Well, so the VA programs, the federally funded programs, a lot of them, and state funded, like you said, Medicaid programs, a lot of them are asking for the diagnosis codes, but it's definitely state specific, like Medi-Cal in California definitely wants diagnosis codes. I don't know about Virginia. I'm in Virginia. I don't know if they do or not. I think I would have heard, because I think everybody would be hitting me up for what I'm guessing that they don't require it. Maybe it's just a nice to have. We do have those fields on the claim form, and if you feel like using them, it's not like it's going to get your claim kicked out. But I will say that we have a lot of what we call wellness plans that are hitting the market. And these wellness plans are when you have a medical and dental plan that actually talks to each other. So the majority of our market is full of what we call standalone dental plans, meaning it's kind of an add-on to the medical plan. It's not necessarily the same thing. Like Dominion Dental is not going to be the same thing as Aetna. So they might have their healthcare with Aetna, but their dental with Dominion. So that's a true standalone. But when you have United Healthcare offering both the medical and the dental, they talk to each other. So a wellness plan is when there's something on the medical side that triggers it's a systemic issue and it triggers something on the dental side. So say you get diagnosed with liver disease or diabetes on the medical side. Well, now you have a condition. So then you have this dental plan that activates, and sometimes the patient has to call and activate it, but it's getting to the point now where it gets activated. And so what that means is that your patient now may have the ability to get 2 extra cleanings that would be covered at totally 100%. If they're diabetic, we've seen some wellness plans where they'll pay for scaling and root planing or osseous surgery at 100% to keep the bacterial load down. So we're starting to see this medical dental come together. It's not as fast as I think a lot of people think, but it is definitely coming. The offices that are going to do medical billing are going to, they're going to be ahead of the curve with this. The rest of us are going to be like, but it will, it will get to the point where you have to know a little bit of medical billing. And, my friend Christine Taxon, we just had the insurance extravaganza in Nashville. She's been saying this for years, and she's been yelling at me for years, like, Teresa, you're not going to be able to get your claims paid in the near future. If it's diabetes, I'm going to be able to get my stuff paid at 100%. You're going to be over here still fighting for 80%. And she's kind of right. So I'm scared. I'm very scared. So
I know you're hoping to be able to slide out before that day comes.
Retirement's around the corner, right? Like I know, Amanda, you've heard this joke, but I'll say in my classes, like, because people say, when are we going to do medical billing? And I'll say, when you get a newsletter that says I'm retiring, like, that's my
it's coming
to everybody that it's coming. So back to the diagnosis codes and should we be using them? I don't think it's a bad idea. I honestly think most doctors, it would not only help them in malpractice cases, but I think it would be strengthening their conversations with patients if they did look into adding, diagnosis codes and cross-coding. But with AI coming, I've already seen some really impressive programs that are going to pick up your clinical notes and suggest diagnosis codes that correspond along with it. So maybe when that happens, it'll be more accepted. I think right now there's just such a pushback from doctors. Like, I document enough. And, and the three of us are like, no, you don't.
Yeah, definitely not. All right. So actually, AI was on our list too. So what are some ways AI is being utilized right now with dental billing? And that can be in any capacity. And then you already obviously know what's on the horizon, what's coming.
Yeah. So AI it's very, very interesting. It's exciting. Like, thank God, because, insurance day after day, you all know it can be like, oh, another buildup. Great. So it's actually been pretty cool with AI coming in to see like the possibilities. So I know a lot of people are using AI to write their appeal letters and to, suggest better templates for clinical notes. And if you're listening to this and you've never played with AI, it does sound very like futuristic and, oh my God, I'm never going to understand it. So I think either myself or somebody will come up with an AI and what it means for billing class, because there's just a lot of stuff out there that they could use and make their lives easier. But you have to be careful because not all AI tells the truth. And that's something, for another podcast, but it can get it pretty close, but sometimes it doesn't tell the truth. So as far as the billing side, our side of it, I think it's going to help out with appeals. It's going to help out with maybe correspondence with patients and how to really communicate well from a patient point of view. You can tell it to, address this to the patient, but use retail facing terms. It's pretty interesting. I've seen some of those prompts. But what I'm excited about is the AI in imaging, which I'm sure you guys have seen. It's pretty wild. I think it does a really good job at case acceptance. And I think as far as getting the insurance to see the need or the reasons for why we did the treatment we did, you send in the original and then you send in the enhanced image. It's pretty hard to deny it when it's just pop, pop, pop of color.
Mhm.
But if you think about it, even if insurance did decide to not allow benefits, the patient has seen that. So it's not like you're telling them something that they can't see. The patient has seen it. So to me, that's true case buy-in. And if they want to help you appeal it, great. But if they don't, at least they still understand why they needed the treatment. So really, really excited about it.
Is there truth behind this?
Yeah. They're trying to make our lives miserable, aren't they?
Or meet a quota, or like, what is the truth behind all these rumors here?
So it's funny because I was joking with a friend, because I do go to these insurance meetings and I am friendly with a lot of insurance people. And one guy, he's just such a smart aleck. He was like, Teresa, we don't need AI to deny your claims. If you want to deny your claims, we're going to deny claims. And I thought, yeah, he's right, actually. He's right. He doesn't really need a reason. Think of it this way. They already do not like us calling as much as we do because we cost them money every time we call. So their goal is to not have us call them at all. That's why they're making the eligibility and benefits easier. They're opening up the back ends for all these programs. Okay, that makes sense, right? So if we started denying even a fraction of claims, the amount of calls they're going to get and the amount of overhead they're going to have to incur is going to be exponential. That's not what they want. So they're not going to be doing this across the board. Will they use it against certain providers that they suspect are fraudulent? Absolutely. And I say more power to them. I hope they do. I hope they catch all of those people. But they're not using it. Well, I don't want to say they're not, like, for sure. I suspect they're not using it across the board as everybody thinks they are. What I do know is on the medical side, there's been a lot of allegations of using AI to deny claims, but that had nothing to do with imaging. That was just the AI scraping the notes and the diagnosis codes and immediately deciding on a denial. And, again, there's going to be a lot of regulation on AI coming down the pike. So I think that's going to correct itself before it becomes too big of an issue. But I mean, let's be honest. If they want to deny our claims, they can look at any claim that has terrible documentation, an x-ray with an open bite, no clinical notes. They don't need AI. We do a good job of not sending in great documentation ourselves.
We shoot ourselves in the foot enough as it is. I know. Ugh.
Yeah. I mean, if anything, I think that the AI that's coming that can help us write our notes and can really give us good images, I think that's only going to, whoever is using AI further, upstream is going to win on this. So I think that's us. So I think we have a good chance of streamlining the whole process using AI. We just have to be forward thinking about it.
I agree with that. I kind of keep saying, like, if you are not using ChatGPT or just AI in some capacity, you're kind of going to be left behind. So it's free. ChatGPT is free. Just log in and take a little spin around. I think then it becomes a little less scary. I believe Vine just kind of launched their AI that's auto pulling the images into the claim, right?
Yep.
Very exciting.
It gives you like a heads up of this is probably the best X-ray.
Yes.
This is a good diagnostic X-ray.
So cool.
It's very cool. But I worry too, and this is the big thing with AI, not just with dental, but we're going to have a ton of people who don't know how to actually look at things.
Yeah.
They're going to trust the computer. Yeah. And this is a big deal on the medical side in medical schools. This is a really big deal because they're starting to basically be told. If you look at radiology, a lot of times these doctors coming up are like, okay, we're being told this, this, and this. So they start to look. They're not looking at an X-ray and looking at the graininess itself. Like they're being told where to look. And is that going to be dentistry soon? Maybe.
Yeah.
I was thinking that too, because I think a struggle these days with front desk staff is not many of them have, well, I shouldn't say not many, but many of them don't have a clinical background. They can't really read x-rays. They don't know what x-ray goes with the claim. And I was thinking, well, now they're never going to have to learn. And I don't know if that is always a positive, but we'll see.
I don't think it can be positive because no matter what, you take insurance out of it, we still have to be able to talk to our patients about the care that they need, right? And we can't just wing it, The doctor can't be the only one that knows clinically what's going to happen. That's a recipe for a disaster. But It's funny, on another podcast that I hosted on my December podcast, I had Kevin Henry and I had Andrew Johnston on. And Andrew is a really well-known hygienist, and Kevin Henry is editor of Dr. Bicuspid. And we were talking about, will AI replace our office team members? And they're all worried about assisting, they're all worried about hygienists, but it's us that's going to be replaced. So
That's what I think too.
If anybody should be fearing AI, I would think it would be the front office. But instead of fearing it, I want you guys to turn it around. Whoever's listening, don't fear it. See how you can use it to make yourself pretty indispensable in the office. I mean, maybe you use it to train people and become a better, coordinator. Maybe you start doing more strategy stuff. And I don't want you to be scared of it. It's too exciting to be scared of.
Yeah.
I was just saying, we've definitely seen some offices move in the direction of like fully outsourcing everything that they possibly can and having more of like a patient concierge type of role, basically just like check in, check out person.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the beginning of it.
I was going to say, I think my approach would be, I'm going to use AI to the max, and I'm going to figure out what its limitations are and where it cannot succeed. And that's the spot that I'm going to fill. There's going to be a limit, right? Like, as much as we think AI is going to take over everything, we're always going to need human intervention in something, I think, in this capacity. So figuring out where that is, and then figuring out how we can all kind of fill those roles or make those lines clear or stand out. That's what I think a better approach is to this AI situation, is figure out where it's going to max itself out and then put yourself there.
Yeah. I mean, whoever is telling the AI how to do AI things is going to be the person, right? I mean, because, gosh, I hope it doesn't become Skynet, but until that happens, somebody has to be able to feed the prompts. I mean, and Sarah, you got it right. If it's you're very valuable.
Yep.
And yeah, I'm excited. I am excited. I just think I've been through too much technology in dentistry for anything to scare me at this point. Besides medical.
Even Teresa has her limits.
Are you guys hearing a lot of people saying, can you teach me medical billing? What's going on with medical billing? Is that something you guys?
I haven't heard so much from the account managers, but I just was on a call this morning with a potential client who was asking me if we do medical billing because they wanted help with it, which I think that is a very common request. Is at the office level, they're like, I don't know what to do with this. My friend Des doesn't know what to do with this. Help me, please.
Yeah. And somebody's going to capitalize on that. There's already some people who are really good at it.
Mm-hmm.
So any billers that are listening, and you too, I mean, if that's something to add into the portfolio, you're going to get a steady stream of people just referring, because they ask each other. Like when you go to a sleep apnea conference, people who are doing it well are going to share who's helping them, and the same thing in oral surgery. So it's very much a pretty self-sufficient referral business, honestly.
We were talking, Sarah and I were talking about this. I can't remember. Maybe it was like after the ADOM conference or something, and talking about offering medical billing. We do actually have a couple account managers who have been doing medical billing, not for us, but they just have a background in it, which is great. So they would be the prime people to trial this with an office on, but obviously very prevalent in oral surgery and things like that. So
yeah, well, and
could be on the horizon.
An airway,
Endo, yep.
Exactly like Teresa brought up, sleep apnea.
Yes.
I mean, I know a lot of doctors that are doing a lot more stuff with airway stuff, and now with the new codes coming out this year for all of that, I mean, it's here, whether we're ready for it or not, and whether we're embracing it or not. It's going to be here, and there are going to be offices that are embracing it. So.
Yeah. Well, and you hook up with a hospital system or a medical system that has a very good sleep business. They are looking for dentists who understand the whole philosophy and the positioning and all of that, which is, I mean, again, as a front office person, as an admin person, it's going to be really hard to bill for sleep apnea if you don't understand the mechanics behind it. And so, yeah, there's got to be somebody that's out there teaching that. But
somebody needs to get on that.
All right.
Well,
so with
Sorry,
Oh,
I
yeah.
see
No,
one
go
on here
ahead.
that I think kind of ties into this. Do you feel like, Teresa, that there will ever be a point where we have like a standard like certification or training or something for dental billers that kind of, includes this stuff?
That comes up all the time. It's like,
I hope so, but really you have two organizations that would be equipped to do it, not the ones that just slap a logo on something and call it certified. So one thing that we have to think about, if we want to really have some teeth behind what we do, we have to trust in our designations and our certifications. And so when you are a dental assistant, you being a certified dental assistant means something. Taking a certificate program and calling it certified, that doesn't qualify you. You can't register as one. And it's got to be the same way for dental billers. So I'm aware that there's ones out there that call themselves certified. And I have emailed maybe 2 or 3 times over the years and said, who's your certifying body? So that's important. You have a certification, there is a certifying body. It's a standards. And this standards body certifies like your plumber, like your electrician, like there's certain criteria that has to be met, right? They have never messaged me back, so I'm going to assume that there's no certifying body.
right.
Plus, I can't find any information on it. The ADA, you would think, so it would be either the ADA or the Academy of Medical Coders, which I forget the acronym of it. It's the official Medical Coders Association. That's not the accurate name, but you know what I mean, like the official one. And they're the ones who, have certified medical coders, CMC. So they have a dental code, but it's almost like they took the medical curriculum and kind of slapped some dental putty on top of it. So it's not what you and I would use on a regular basis.
It needs some love.
It does, but I applaud the effort. I do. I applaud the effort. You would think the ADA would do it, but they only offer a certificate program, which is also what I offer. My online course is a certificate program, because when you have certification, here's the important part. There's liability that goes with it. So if I hire somebody and they say they've been certified as a biller and they end up fraudulently, doing all sorts of stuff, you could go back to the certifying body and say, you need to work on this. They take it seriously. They'll yank the certification. They'll even, maybe bring up ethics charges, whatever. But these companies that just say it's a certified program, they're not going to do that. So there's really no recourse. So which really hurts the industry, because if a doctor is going to trust that they've been through a good program, there has to be some teeth behind the program. I do find it unfortunate that the ADA won't put teeth behind it, but I think they just don't want to deal with the liability of it. And so that's why they only do a certificate program. And same for me. I'm not the ADA, so I'm not taking on liability, right? Like, I will teach you as much as I can in my course. And if it works, it works, but you can take the course and still not be a good biller. It's got to be between, you've got to have the fire in you to go and be a good pit bull biller, which is what we are.
We have talked before about how people can kind of transition into remote billing from a clinical position. And 2 of the courses we talk about a lot are yours and also the ADAs, because we've taken both. So we'll be sure to link those below for whoever wants to check those out.
I want to give a shout out to the AAP, the perio.org, the Periodontist Association. They have a coding class for perio services, but it does get a lot into surgery and grafting and things like that. So if that's something your office is doing, they will, I think if you're not a member, it's super expensive, but if you're a member, it's pretty affordable. But that is an in-person class that they are holding. So it might be something to look into.
Ooh, all right. We'll have to link that one below too. I hate always going back to Facebook, but this is where we get our questions from. People are like, I'm thinking about getting certified in dental billing. I'm like, by who? Like, is it required by someone you're trying to work for? I just always get very confused as to what they're talking about there.
But I'm excited that they're asking. Because what that tells me is that they're looking for the answer. They're looking for the real truth. They want to do it ethically. And so it just bothers me that all these people are like, hey, I got a certification. So I'm glad that you guys asked the question, because I do think there needs to be clarity. I mean, just super clear here. You can take my class. It's 8 hours, 20 modules, more than 20 modules, but you will not be certified. And you're not going to go out there and operate at the level like we operate at, because there is experience
Mm-hmm.
that comes with it. But if you wanted to jump in with both feet and learn it, then yeah, that's where I would go. Just take a real deep dive into a program and find somebody who you feel communicates the information well to you, because this is not easy information, right? So don't listen to someone that's driving you crazy. Listen to somebody who you feel can really explain it, and then make sure that you are asking lots of questions. Ask Google, trust the resources, and call the ADA if you have any questions. If you don't like their answer, then keep researching it.
Right.
Sorry, just like if you don't,
Why is
if you
Sarah
don't like,
laughing? What did
if
I
you
say?
don't like their answer, then go to the Facebook group that you want to find the answer you really want.
Yes. And use that advice. Oh, geez.
Reverse engineering.
Right. I think there was something I was going to say. Oh, I think that finding somebody that you trust that can give good information, and somebody who you feel like you can get into a good long-term relationship with, because what I was just thinking is like, even now, I mean, I'm over a decade into dental billing and being in dental offices and doing it, full time. And now in my sleep, I'm doing it, basically thinking about it. And I still sometimes have questions. And I'm just like, to have somebody who is a friend, somebody who's doing this day to day, who's also still working in office, who's, seeing it, whatever, that you can reach out to, or a good group of people, ADOM with the forums that they have, other people in your same situation to be able to reach out to and say, hey, what do we do for this? Or this really weird situation happened. Can somebody help me? I think being open to learning and remembering that even when you've been doing it for this long, you're still going to come across things that you might not know the answer to.
It happens all the time. I mean, I have people I go to when
Yeah.
I definitely don't have all the answers. I certainly don't.
What else do we got, Amanda? Any other burning questions you've got for Teresa?
I see Amanda. She's like,
Yeah. Well, I'm like, what did we already cover? I guess I should have deleted the questions as we went along. But what do you see the vitality of dental billing companies being in the future? Since we've talked about AI replacing our jobs and things like that, I'd love to get your take on that.
So I think the eligibility and benefits piece is not going to be a moneymaker for these billing companies. I think that's going to be, it's almost like McDonald's like offering a $2 burger to get you in the lineup. Like, you're going to lose money on that. And eligibility and benefits, I have a whole different thing on that. I think we're so crazy about it. We're crazed about eligibility and benefits. I think that's going to be a money loser for a lot of these billing companies. But what really makes me sad is a lot of mostly it's women starting up. They work from home and they think, oh, I can do this. And they don't realize it's much more work than they think. So the back end of the carriers and the clearinghouses are making it much easier to get that information. That piece is going to be fixed fast. I mean, just give it a year or two and we're going to be able to get that information. Getting it into the software is that's like the last mile. Like that's going to resolve itself over time. But getting eligibility and benefits is not going to be this big thing anymore. So I think if you're a company and that's what you're focusing on, I think you're going to find yourself in real trouble in about a year or so. There is always going to be money in cleanup because so many people screw up. That's just the truth. So many people screw up. They leave the practice. They don't know what to do. EFTs is like its own little engine of money generating, because how many offices have you run into where the EFT is just sitting there and it's not being reconciled? Like, I see this all of the time.
Yes.
I'll get a doctor that's like, I've got $100,000 worth of EFTs just sitting there and nobody's reconciled them. And I'm like, oh, that means nobody's getting a bill from any dollar amounts, and nothing. Your collections look awful. There's always going to be cleanup. So I think if you focus on cleanup, claims processing, and I want to say medical billing, the big image that comes through my crystal ball that makes me want to break it is that I think we are going to be part of the big medical engine, either when I retire or just after I retire. Honestly, it's coming. It's definitely coming. The medical organizations are taking a look at dentistry. There's still lots of profit margins in dentistry compared to medical. private equity, as you know, is pouring into the industry. There's a lot of money to be made in dentistry. And does that mean marching us down the medical road? Yeah, I think it does. I think it does.
Maybe it could hold off until after I retire. That's kind of what I'm hoping for.
You guys are very young. I don't see that happening.
Teresa thought I was 30, and I was I was feeling very good about that.
You guys both look super young. So, yeah.
Just love it.
Well, thank
we
you.
need to have Teresa and her compliments on every week, Amanda. What are we doing?
Yes. Compliments by Teresa. It could be a whole little series we got going on. I agree with you there. So I think first thoughts for me when we're seeing like AI do payment posting and all of this crazy stuff is it was still spitting out this long list of errors for the human to go in and fix.
Yep.
And I think that is going to just be the way for quite some time. So you always are going to need a little bit of human touch. Thank the Lord that eligibility and benefits is getting better, because you're right. I agree. People go a little crazy with it. It's a pain point in the dental industry for sure. So
it's got to be a huge drain on a billing company's resources.
Well,
I mean,
and don't you think
I can't see you guys making money on
right? And don't you think it's a huge drain also on the insurance company's resources? Like, think about when you're talking about money for phone calls. I mean, they have to just be bleeding money over people trying to get benefits, right?
Oh, they hate us.
Yes.
They hate us, and it's not us. It's the companies that are set up overseas that have 50 to 60 questions per patient. Doesn't matter if it's a child or an adult, and they want the same information all the time. And here's what's interesting. I just talked to somebody who owns one of those companies, and I said, why don't you guys work on like hooking into the insurance company through the back end with the API or going with one of these companies? No, we get better information, and it costs me less money to pay this call center overseas. It pays me less money to call. It costs me less money to pay these people overseas than it does to pay for the interaction, the technology to go in. So even though he's acknowledging the technology is faster, it's not cheaper when you look at the cost of labor overseas. So yeah, we're the insurance companies hate.
Yeah,
they really do.
I just guess I don't understand, and I guess I've never understood, like, these insurance companies, they have the plan document, they have all the information, like that's laid out. It's laid out from the beginning when this plan was, conceived at the conception of this beautiful little plan. Like, why is that not just somewhere where we can access it easier? I don't get it.
And it's a lot of it is these silly little blocks, these electronic data fields. Like if it's set up where every one of those data fields could be transformed or transferred over to the clearinghouses, they would do it. That's why Principal has been able to give you good information. That's why United Concordia gives you 500 pages of information, because they do have it all spelled out. But a lot of them, their legacy systems are ancient. Like Delta of California, MetLife, they're older technology system.
Yeah.
So, I mean, as you know, so I wish we could wave a magic wand and get that done. But right now, the best way of getting the real truth of an eligibility pull is to find out what the certificate of coverage is, a certificate of eligibility that the patient has. So now forget eligibility and benefits. The best information comes from the patient. We're like full circle.
Yep.
Like we totally skipped technology, and now I'm like, hey, can I get that download from your HR portal?
Yeah,
because that's what's coming.
Yep.
Would you mind bringing in that 20-page piece of paper that you have?
Why does that 20-page paper? I mean, to Sarah's point, why does that 20-page paper have everything I need, but I'm getting all this other
yes.
stuff? Why is that?
I don't.
So I hear you.
It's there. Somebody put it in writing. It's in writing somewhere. Like, even if there was a way for us to just get that thing, even if they're not going to structure it in a way that's, codes and percentages like we want, even if we could just get our hands on the document, like, oh man, just seems it's cumbersome, unnecessarily cumbersome. I mean, we all know that. We've all been beating our heads against the wall for forever about it. So,
I know.
Doesn't your crystal ball have some like magic answers for us, Teresa? That's what we were hoping.
I told
It's
you,
cloudy.
it's very cloudy. It's because we were talking about medical billing and it automatically went red. The clouds came
Or it exploded.
Yeah, right.
Oh, yeah.
All right. Well, to wrap up a little bit, give that ball a little shake. What do you see in the next 5 or 10 years, just kind of as a summary of what we talked about today?
So I do think that the clauses, plan limitations are going to get a little bit more creative because the pressure is on now to make the plans more profitable for a lot of reasons. There's a lot more legislation coming on the pike that the carriers have to take a look at. Non-covered services has been all over the place. And now we're talking about transparency laws, network transparency laws, which a lot of states are starting to pass or introduce, which means they have a certain period of time to notify you before you get put into another network. And then there's a certain period of time where they must remove you from a network upon termination. All that is expensive for them and unexpected, another expense that they're not looking at. So I do think our clauses are going to change so that they can kind of recoup some of that and make it more. And the employers have the last call on that, as you know. So that's why it's important to keep contact with the employers to say, you could flip the switch here and not have Perio payable only for 2 years after a scaling and route planning. You could do it that way, but it's going to take office managers and insurance coordinators knowing that language. I think we have to be better communicators with our patients. And one thing I would love to see the industry do is to revisit marketing so that they're not so dependent on PPOs sending them patients. I would love to see a re-embracing of marketing, and hopefully marketing is more than just social media because that's not going to get you a lot of new patients. There has to be some sort of resurgence. That's the word I was looking for. There has to be a resurgence in marketing and more patient communication. For the billers out there that are, starting out, or they're maybe you're experienced and you've been here a while, it's going to get more difficult as the plan designs change and as patient expectations change. But, as we've been talking about, be open to being the outsourcing source for more than just billing, because there's a lot more that you can help the office with. If you're good at billing, then you're probably good at collecting money. You're probably good at talking about treatment too. So I'm seeing a lot of offices that are looking to outsource, like you said, the reception piece. But I also know of offices that are outsourcing their treatment coordination and their follow-ups and all of that. So I think there's a lot of opportunity. Billing is a wonderful career, but it doesn't have to be the end of it. There's just a lot that we can do on the admin side to stay relevant and to stay around.
I agree. I think also to keep your finger on the pulse, Teresa, I've heard you say this before, but read your newsletters that are coming in your email from the ADA. Definitely sign up for your State Dental Association newsletter. I'm in Massachusetts. They are wonderful at updating us on what bills are on the table, what they're trying to advocate for. And that's always a great glimpse into the future. So that is, those are my tips. I mean, that keeps my finger on the pulse for sure. And every state is different. So
just keep learning.
Yes, just keep learning.
Keep looking for things to learn, and billing is changing, and that's why I'm glad that we've got a whole community of billers, a good community of billers on Facebook. What is that? I always forget the name. Remote. It's just bookmarked, or the remote billing group. There's some really good people in there. And if you are wondering how difficult it is to own an outsourcing company, you should spend some time in there. So, because you got to be realistic, right, ladies? Like, it may not be for everyone.
I am trying to bite my tongue when people are saying they're in the midst of starting their own dental billing company. I'm like, don't jump in now. It just...
Yeah.
And especially, apparently, especially if you're starting with just verifications, just don't even go that route.
I mean, wow, you would lose your money. You really would. You would lose your money. So,
and your mind, your money and your mind, you're going to lose both.
I mean, just listen to the voice of reasons here.
All right. Well, that wraps up today's episode. Teresa, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. I think you gave our listeners a lot of knowledge there and a lot to look forward to and a lot to be mindful of. So
I'm appreciative.
Yes, so happy to have you.
Yes.
Well, you guys are awesome. I think the world of you. So anytime. And yeah, congratulations on your podcast. I'm enjoying it.
Thank you so much. All right, everybody. We will catch you on the next episode. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.